Manic and Chill. It is our first episode of the 2025 season. Shane, it has been a pretty long off season, but we have a week in the books. We're coming up here on week 2, starting tomorrow night. Today, we're going to talk through some this or that. I'm going to give Shane some Trinity darlings from this week and talk about maybe some actual moves we can make with that. We'll give our reactions to week 1. Some players that are maybe some sell lows or some buy highs.
Sell lows.
Instead of going
I like that.
buy low and sell high, maybe we'll do the opposite. Come up with some names that maybe fit those criteria. But for those tapping in for the first time, welcome. This is Manic and Chill. We do this every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. It's really just Shane and I talking Dynasty, whatever's on our mind. There usually isn't an elaborate show script where we have topics pre-planned. We're just talking about what 2 Dynasty players are doing. We never really get to talk like this outside of this show. We're usually engaging with our Discord. If you're not already in the community, it's patreon.com/allgas or ddfantasyfootball.com. Either gets you in the door to get into the community. We've both dropped some content already. Shane, I did Destination Dynasty came back this week. First time in like 8 months. So that will be back on the podcast waves. The
Nice.
Trinity show that Ray and
Nice.
I did yesterday for the YouTube members. If you're a member, you can join in the description. But Ray and I do that Trinity show. It's probably the most actionable show that we're going to do all week, honestly, because we talk through like how to move in and out of ranges of players based on the Trinity tool. You dropped your first Shane Says of the season. That's out there for the patrons. And then we've already had a lot of conversations going on in the Discord. So tap in if you're not already in there. Yeah.
I also dropped Follow the Volume. That was it was a little long. It was a little lengthy, a little longer than it's going to be the rest of the season, but it was around 3,500 words after I deleted a few dozen little tidbits.
That's like a big paper for school. It's like Shane's going back to Dynasty school, right?
Basically.
All right. Well, let's get into it. So biggest takeaways from week 1, it can be whatever you want, but what literally comes to your mind when you're saying, man, all the games are over for week 1. What was like the first or second thing where you're like, I want to go actually do this, or this is really sticking in my mind?
It's a few different things. One, I wish I had more Tyler Warren. Absolutely wish I had more Tyler Warren. I think one of the things that stuck out to me is some of the low-key, not sexy wide receivers that had really good weeks that we probably could have seen coming if we just looked at their Trinity from last year, some of their data from last year, and the way they ended it. I guess one of the things I want to do is get me some Harold Fannon because that feels sustainable for some reason. Although maybe. I don't know how often wide receiver or your tight ends are going to see 15 targets between them. We saw some players hyper targeted, right? Like Zay Flowers and JSN. I think, I don't know if anyone else was. There's a little concern maybe that Cooper Kupp would eat into the JSN share a little bit, but he didn't. Didn't even affect it even in the least. And then going back all the way back to last Thursday, which feels like forever ago. No, not last Thursday. It was Friday. Going back all the way back to last Friday. The Chargers wide receiver room, like what are we doing with that? That's another one of those things that kind of sticks out in my mind. But I guess the biggest thing that stuck out to me, though, is just bad QB play. At least bad QB scoring in some cases. Like Dak Prescott, I don't think it was bad QB play so much as bad QB scoring, right? His day looks a lot better if CeeDee Lamb doesn't, play volleyball while he's supposed to be playing football. But there were some really bad quarterback. Sam Darnold comes to mind. Jesus, now the other person just slipped out of my head. But there were a few quarterbacks. Oh, Bryce Young. Bryce Young was bad. Some of these quarterbacks that we thought and hoped were going to take a step forward this year. Caleb Williams Monday night. I know his fantasy scoring looked okay and it looked good, but really didn't look like he took a step forward like we wanted to. And then just the rookie running back usage. I think some of us drafted a lot of these rookie running backs hoping that come week 1, we would just plug them in there and they would automatically be running back ones. And that's not what happened In the case of RJ Harvey, obviously Quinshon Judkins isn't there. Hampton didn't put up a big week. I mean, out of the rookies, besides JCM, who had a big week, really Genty. But just those are some of the things that caught my mind.
Yeah, there was a few for me, but before I get into mine, I want to kind of pick your brain on one of the things you mentioned, because I do agree with you on the quarterbacks. For me, the thing that I'm tracking, it's only a week, but the thing that I'm tracking is, and it's something that we talked about on the Trinity show yesterday, is these quarterback situations that, I mean, some of these quarterbacks you expect to bounce back, or you expect their environments to be such that they're not as bad as they were in week one. The Bengals is one. The Rams is another. The Lions is another. The Texans is another. The Broncos is another. All those quarterbacks were bottom 10 quarterbacks in week one. So even Matt Stafford was very bad in week one. Now, CJ Stroud was also very bad. Maybe that's just a bad game for both quarterbacks based on the matchups. Denver, okay. You know, maybe my eyes are a little bit open for Bo Nix. You know what I mean? Just that wasn't a place you expected him to take off from where he was last year. McCarthy's a rookie. I think there are some concerns with the Lions offense, but we're also comparing. I mean, the Lions offense wasn't great. It also wasn't even one of the bottom 10 offenses in the league, at least from a actual passing perspective. Okay. But I think compared to the last couple of years of the Lions offense, where we expect them to be a top 1 efficiency offense, that's where there's a little bit of worry. Bengals, I think you could chalk that up to, let's give it another week. They have a good track record, but I'm tracking the situations that appear to be nuclear bad, Shane. The Panthers. On paper, there isn't a person that told you the Jags didn't have a bottom 5 defense coming in. And here you go, Bryce. In that first game, you're like, okay, are we going to get the Bryce Young from last year? It's a good matchup on paper. Boom. Awful. Bryce Young was the 3rd worst quarterback if you're looking at passing efficiency metrics. Their running game wasn't great, but the passing part of that was bad. The Dolphins, same thing. You know, remember, I know everyone's kind of pumping up the Colts defenses that they're pretty good, but this is the same defense that was bad last year. And, they have the Bengals' old defensive coordinator who got fired for being bad. So are the Colts going to be a good D? Maybe they're better than we think, but you didn't look at this matchup scared of the Colts D. You know what I mean? And the Dolphins look like they couldn't do anything right. And then the Titans. I don't know if you've heard some of the rhetoric. Cam Ward was the worst quarterback in week one. Not even close. Every metric you look at, he was the worst. Now,
he's a rookie on the road
at a top 5 defense, fine. But there's this thought that Cam Ward is it. You know what he didn't do? Just shit his pants in week one. But nothing else shy of that was at all something you're excited about. You know what I mean? So those are the situations I'm looking at. Seattle was another one. No. That looks like the way they played was exactly how you would expect them to play, but they don't have really anything but JSN. Their running game wasn't great. They have Sam Darnold and not Lamar Jackson at quarterback. So what's the future there of any of you're not feeling too great about your Elijah Arroyo or Torrey Horton shares at this point. So yeah, and the Giants, I see in the comments, the Giants are low. But that's the one I'm tracking, Shane, is these bottom nuclear offenses where you may not have liked Alec Iomanner, but a lot of people do. You might not have liked Chiga Conquo, but a lot of people did. And this doesn't appear like there's these situations where they're going to be able to carry 3, 4, 5 different players that have any value, because value is going to follow their production. So that's what stood out to me.
Yeah, I mean, just a couple things on that. So just specific to Alec Iomanner. He had great route participation and great usage. I expect things will be better for the Tennessee offense. I didn't expect great things out of the Tennessee offense, but yeah, I mean, they're going up against one of the best defenses there is in the league at home. That's a rough ask when your wide receiver room is Calvin Ridley and Alec Iomanner. No world, no disrespect to him, but Alec Iomanner should not be starting week one for an NFL team. He just shouldn't. So situation's not great. Bo Nix looked terrible from what I saw. I didn't watch the whole game. But yeah, you're right. There are a lot of very, very scary situations. There is someone that just put in the chat. Where is it? I'm going to put it here. Yeah, 4 teams ran under 50 offensive plays, 11 less touchdowns year over year. That's the killer, right? So you're watching, and I don't know what they ended up running, but I'm watching that Saints and Arizona game, and it felt like I was waiting a week and a half for Arizona to get the ball back from New Orleans. Every time I looked up, New Orleans had the ball in the third quarter. I went out a couple times. I didn't see Arizona with the ball once. I'm sure they had it. I just didn't see it. Do we just buy in on those situations though? Like the giant situation, that's going to probably rectify itself sooner than later, right? Jackson Dart's probably going to get back there and things are going to look better. But then Miami, there is no better. Like, what is the better? Seattle. We talked about this. I don't know if I talked about it on the drive or I talked about it riding home in the Heisman voice chat. But the fact that Seattle went out, gave this money to Sam Darnold, and then the first thing they did this year was go, let's not feature him, and that's kind of worrisome. If JSN gets 50% of the targets or 80% of the receiving yards that's available, great, but that's not likely to happen. There's a reason people don't finish with 50% target shares. It's an absurd number that is not sustainable. So that's a little concerning.
Yeah, I mean, we call it the Trinity, but I think there's a magic elixir that you're looking at for offenses, and there's 3 components to it. There's obviously the efficiency of the offense itself. So forget about how many plays they run, forget about how fast they play. How good is the offense on a per play basis, right? There's a lot of these teams that play slow, but that because they're so good and the way that they play, like, you're going to get your best bang for your buck with teams like Philly, with like Baltimore. That's what Detroit thrived on last year. Detroit was at the bottom in neutral pass rate. They were below average in terms of plays per game, but they were just so efficient that you still got production out of what they gave you every single game. Green Bay was trending on that way last year. They just weren't super efficient. Guess what? Green Bay played exactly like Philly and Baltimore this week. Super efficient. Not a lot of volume, but you know what? Every time they had the ball, it was positive. And if you're going to get that, then you're going to have players on those teams that can be frustrating because they're not going to get volume. You can't have 5 players get volume when a team runs 52 plays. Half of them are runs, and there's a bunch of big plays mixed in there where they don't hold the ball a ton. They don't run a ton of plays. They don't sustain long drives because they're scoring quick. You know what I mean? Then you have the teams that aren't super efficient, but like the Patriots. The Patriots ran a ton of plays, right? Like, you have teams like that, that maybe if they're not great, but they run a ton of plays, you can still have players produce for fantasy. And then you just have the concentration of the offenses. How many players are they spreading this throughout? That's one of the concerns with a few of these teams in week 1 is it's like, did we really need to have 8 different guys touch the ball 4 or more times? Like, that's not what you want to see. If you want the wide receiver 3 on a team, you know what else you don't want? A tight end 2, a running back 2, a wide receiver 4. Like, you don't want that many players. You want it to be concentrated. That's why Philly's thrived over the years, Shane. They have 3 guys and a running back. They don't work in their 4th receiver for 3 targets, their 3rd receiver for 5 targets, their 2nd tight end for 2 targets. If they did that, you think it's frustrating to have Smitty or Goddard or A.J. Brown. What if they had 2 other Nats where they're like, oh, yeah, we have to get this guy 4 touches, and we have this other running back that we bring in, and we're going to throw him a couple check downs. Like, at least you have the concentration. So that's what I'm looking at over the next couple weeks. Whose concentration starts to tighten up, whose efficiency starts to rise, or which ones fall to the very bottom. And then also just how good are the offenses, from the peak and then at the very bottom, and then just sheer number of plays. And then looking at pass rate. So there's a lot of things that come into this, but as this evolves, you can start looking at like Trinity scores and go, man, even though that's a good offense, like I don't want it to be, like, I'll just give an example from the Bengals, Shane. I know you are not a huge T. Higgins believer, but you better bet that it affects T. Higgins if they have Yoshivas, Fant, Chase Brown, and Mike Gesicki. Those guys are not as good as him. You want those guys out of the way. You know what I mean? You don't want them even getting 2 targets. you want it to be hyper concentrated. And there's many other examples, but that one comes to mind where you just have to look at how many pieces are spread out and then how big the pie is. So this is an abstract conversation, but once we get a little more sample size, like 3 or 4 games, we're going to really start to be able to say, okay, this is an offense I want to attack. Like I'll give a positive one. The Falcons. The Falcons appear to be a team where you're going to be able to support at least 3 players on the roster. So every week, one of Kyle Pitts or Darnell Mooney is probably higher on the pecking order than what you initially thought going into the year, just based on how their offense is running. And that's one that I don't necessarily think people were ready for some conviction, but that's one where I have some conviction. I don't know which one it is, but one of those 2 guys is probably a very strong play. And there's many other examples, but just want to throw that out there.
No, and I'm just looking at NFL Pro. I'm looking at the target rates from this week, and one thing that strikes me is we did have a couple of those just absolute monster weeks, right? Like there's JSN, Zay Flowers, Hollywood, Garrett Wilson, CD, Puka, because Puka's Puka, and that's what he does. But there were only 10 wide receivers with a 30% target share this week. I'd like to go back to the beginning of last year and see what that looked like, because it feels like, and I could be wrong, I got to go back and look at some of the stuff I wrote up, but it definitely feels like there was more. You're talking about concentration. There was definitely more hyper targeted wide receivers at this point. Now it's 1 week. It's 1 week. So yeah, more hyper targeted wide receivers last year after 1 week than there is this week. And you were talking about specifically, it felt like you were talking about Denver's offense where they targeted, or they had 10 receivers, I think, or 10 different people had a catch, and they sprinkled in Tyler Beatty on, I believe it was third down work. That was a little, here you go. Literally, Phil. Denver was horrible for getting way too many dudes involved. Yeah, it was a joke. And I guess some of it is just the normal, this is the first part, the first week of the season, we're working through some things. The only problem with that with Denver is you would kind of hope, well, this is their second year with Sean Payton and Bo Nix. You would hope that the offense was kind of settled. After Cortland Sutton, maybe it could have been Franklin, Mims, whatever. But there was way too many dudes involved, way too many. And then Evan Ingram got hurt, of course, because he's Evan Ingram.
So here's an example of probably the triumvirate in a negative fashion. So CJ Stroud was a bottom 10 quarterback from a passing efficiency standpoint. Okay, I can live with that in a tough matchup, right? Like you can live with a bottom 10 efficiency performance in a tough matchup. But then you look at the fact that they targeted 8 different receivers, right? So they had to play Xavier Hutchinson and Jalen Knoll. They had 2 tight ends that split the routes. They also they had to get Justin Watson involved as the wide receiver 5. And they ended up with like 9 players that had between 4 and 6 points. And that dragged down Nico Collins. That drags down some of the guys you were starting because there's not a lot of concentration. The quality was poor, and the pace of play in week 1 was poor. So everything was negative. So you wonder why, like, Nico Collins wasn't great. Well, look no further than the triumvirate for the Texans was awful. And I guess the silver lining is they had a terrible game and no success. So a smart coaching staff's going to say, you know what? Maybe we just tighten this up a little bit. You know what I mean? Maybe we don't play 5 receivers. But that's an indictment on, and I get it, it's the first week, but like you take out Christian Kirk, and instead of putting in, I saw a bunch of tweets saying Jalen Knoll and Jaden Higgins season. Actually, it was Xavier Hutchinson and Justin Watson season.
Well, here's the thing, though.
Stover, we had to work him in as well.
But if you had listened to the offseason reports, Xavier Hutchinson was always going to be the wide receiver 3.
Sure.
Like if you just listen to it, well.
But then why were we all paralyzed on Jalen Knoll and Jaden Higgins? With what I just told you, poor passing efficiency, massive concentration in the negative way, and a slow pace of play with a low neutral passer. Tell me why we would be excited about the 2 rookie receivers. What was the plan?
There is no, I don't want to say it like this. A lot of times there isn't a plan. There is eternal optimism. You see this at the beginning of the year. You do. You see this like this time it's going to be different. It's every bad relationship you've had in your life is that there's certain teams and certain fantasy players or NFL players, fantasy purposes, that you just can't quit. even though it's the same thing over and over and over again. Or, because even without evidence to the contrary, you just decide like this is the year that it's going to change. They're going to fundamentally change the way and the person that they are. And it's funny because just to that point, like Jay Rich was talking about on Wake Up today about Caleb Williams, or maybe it was Ray. I forget who was talking about it, but I think it was Ray actually. But just talking about like, this is the player he is. This is the type of player he is. Like, if this is not what you signed up for, well, then that's unfortunate. He's not going to change what he is. Like, he's a type of player that's just going to run around and leave the pocket. I mean, that's what he's going to do. He's not going to sit in the pocket and toss it around. He's going to leave the pocket, whether he should or he shouldn't.
Well, that's another one. I mean, I mentioned the Texans, but the Bears did the same thing. Like, if you were a Luther Burden or Colston Loveland fan, you know what you don't like? Olamide Zaccheaus and Cole Kmet. You're going, just go away. And it's pretty evident that the Bears are not going to tell them just to go away. You know what I mean? So again, like, what is the path with Colston Loveland right now, or Luther Burden? Like, what is it going to? I mean, if the whole offense gets better, which I would expect that offense to get better as Caleb develops with Ben Johnson, but like, they still have a quality and a concentration problem. Even if the quality gets better and the pace of play goes up, you still cannot have your tight end 2 out there getting 4 targets. Like, that's a problem. You can't have your wide receiver 4 getting 6 targets. Like, where do you go from here?
He had a 20% target share. That is absolutely ridiculous in 2025 that Amadeus Zaccheaus, so close, that he's getting a 20% target share. When you have Roma Dunze and DJ Moore on the field with you, and you got Colston Loveland and Luther Burden. And I didn't even look up Luther Burden's route participation. I don't know what he did, but I feel like I didn't see him on the field once when I was watching.
He was out there.
I don't remember. Was he?
A little bit. But
and
you added
a lot of them.
They have a running back that they're giving 22 touches, including targets. So it's just, I know it's only week 1, but this is the stuff I'm paying attention to. And I get it. Things change. Like, Zaccheaus and Cole Kmet could get out of the way. Xavier Hutchinson could get out of the way. So like, these things could change and develop. I expect it to.
Right.
But there are some things that you can maybe bet on. Like, is it going to happen fast enough for you to be able to capitalize? And let me ask you, let's talk about Luther Burden real quick. What happens if Luther Burden in week 8 is still the wide receiver 4 and he's playing 40% of the snaps and he's getting 1 or 2 opportunities a game where he's actually got a play scripted up for him, or like he's just not producing? Like, where do you go from there? Because of course you're going to say, well, I have no choice now. I took him at the 204 in the rookie draft. I can't sell him for a third.
You have a choice.
So people are going to hold on to him. But what's the move at that point?
You always have a choice. I mean, 8 games in at that point, I don't want to be, too, what's the word I'm looking, reactionary. But 8 weeks in, if he's still only playing 40% of the snaps, you look at him and go, all right, is he anything more than a fancy high-end throw-in in a deal? Is he just someone that I can use with another piece to tier up at another position? Would I move him for a third? Probably not. You know what I mean? You know my take on thirds. I'm not moving any player that I think can increase in value for a third, and he's a player that could increase in value. We saw it, Monday night. Yeah, was it Monday night or was it Sunday night? It was Sunday night, right? We saw it with Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman he didn't blow the doors off the hinges last year. He was averaged something like 8.2 fantasy points per game. He wasn't particularly impressive. But he goes out there in week 1 and sees I gotta look at his target share, but he puts up a monster week, a very good week. And, all of a sudden the steam's behind him. So yeah, he had a 24% target share. Not bad.
So what about one of these players that is probably stuck in one of these situations, knowing that the next 2 years, and I say 2 years, meaning like you're probably going to get this style of play with this type of quarterback over the next 2 years. Is it fair to say, like, would you be willing to pull the plug on like Elijah Arroyo at this point?
No.
Okay.
No.
You wouldn't sell Elijah Arroyo for a third?
No. I'll hold on. Because Sam Darnold, they can get off of, and they will be getting off of him if it doesn't improve.
And then what's the plan?
From what I understand, and I'm not a scout, but just listening to real football podcasts like Move the Sticks or whoever the hell it is I listen to, NFL Daily, one of them was telling me that Sam Darnold wasn't as bad as I think he was, or that my eyes told me that he was.
That's fine. But let's say they did somehow get off of Sam Darnold. Then they have, I don't know, best case scenario, Cam Ward as a rookie. We're already saying is not going to be able to produce a third option. You know what I mean? Like it
You
just
mean
feels like
Jalen Milroe.
No, let's just say at best they sucked completely, got off Sam Darnold,
had
the number one pick, and then got
you.
next year's version of Cam Ward, who we've already shit on and said he's not going to be able to support more than
I haven't
one
shit
player.
on. He can, but
Okay.
the players have to be better. It can't be Calvin Ridley, Alec Iomanner, and Chigo Okonkwo. Like, not for nothing. There's not a lot of people can make those dudes fantasy usable.
See, and here's one that that sticks out to me. Jack Besh wasn't heavily involved, but he's in the type of offense that I would be willing to buy into rather than some of these other guys. Like, I would much rather have Jack Besh over Torrey Horton. I'd much rather have Jack Besh over Alec Iomanner. And that might not be popular, but if I'm just buying into the situation, I feel much better about his situation, the way the Raiders played. Forget about his specific opportunity, but just the situations that they're in. And that might be something, if people are ready to bail on him, that might be one you could get off of. Could you get off of Jalen Noel for Jack Besh? I bet you could. You know what I mean? Like, I think you could make that kind of move. Maybe you even get a plus. I don't know. But we're talking really low-level moves here. I want to zoom it back out to something you said at the beginning and just test you a little bit here. You said you wished you had more Harold Fannon and Tyler Warren. Are you actually going to back that up?
But trying to buy them?
Are you willing to go out and pay the new price?
No, because I actually traded Harold Fannon this afternoon.
What'd you trade Harold Fannon for?
I traded Fannon and Coleman for 26 first and Kyle Monangai.
Okay.
It's a flex. It's not a flex league. It's no flex league. So you do need 2 starting tight ends. Wide receivers are kind of replaceable. So that's basically a bet that Keon Coleman's not as good as he showed on Monday. And it's also a bet that I keep saying Monday, Sunday. It's also kind of a bet that, look, Harold Fannon, I think is going to be nice. I just don't think he's what we saw this past week. It boggles my mind that that's what he's going to be. I mean, he could be, they used him in a lot of different ways. And it's funny because I remember at the Senior Bowl, we talked about how he didn't have his hand in the dirt once as a negative. Well, it's kind of seemed like that was a positive this past week. But anyway, I've offered Jordan Mason for him. Like, do you consider that paying the iron price in a 1.5 tight end premium?
No, you're probably looking at Fannon right now. I mean, Warren's already tight end 3. And it's not particularly close. Yeah,
Warren, you have to pay, like, literally, what would you pay for Trey McBride? Maybe 75% of that. You can get away with 80%.
More, because if somebody has Warren, they think that, I mean, if you have Warren, you have potentially the only guy right now in Dynasty that can get into the McBride Bowers tier. And just nobody's really letting him go. I'm not saying he's going to get there, but he's very hard to pry away. But let's just say the only tight ends that are valued higher than Harold Fannon at this point are probably Bowers, McBride, Tyler Warren. I mean, honestly, right now, if you were having a tight end that you needed to trade, who feels better to try to trade? George Kittle or Harold Fannon?
Who would I rather
George Kittle, right?
Yeah, George Kittle's not touching the field for 4 weeks.
Sam Laporta or Harold Fannon? Who do people like more?
Harold Fannon.
Colston Loveland or Harold Fannon? Nobody likes Colston Loveland right now.
Okay, well that's going a little.
TJ Hawkinson or Harold Fannon?
Dude, TJ Hawkinson's not on that team anymore.
Just saying. I'm going down the line. Tucker Kraft or Harold Fannon?
No,
Tucker Kraft doesn't score a touchdown. He's stuck in an offense that's.
Dude, people tell me Dalton Kincaid had a good week because he scored a touchdown, regardless of the fact that he's a part-time tight end player.
I'm just naming tight ends 4 through 10 that are above Harold Fannon on KTC, and not one of them have you gone, hell yeah, give me that guy.
Whoa, hold on. No, hold on. I'm not taking him over Laporta, Hawkinson, Colston Loveland. Who else did you name?
Then you're not getting
Kraft. Well, right. I'm not. Probably not. Yeah.
Because I already mentioned him, but you know who actually looks good and is in a role. And I'll be honest, I'm excited for the Browns offense because they played exactly how you'd want to play for multiple options to be relevant. So they look like they're playing the same way they've played for the last 5 years under Kevin Stefanski. They have a high neutral pass rate. Whether you like Flacco or not, the one thing he can do is get the ball out quick to players. So if you like catches and you like yards and you like playing that way, like he's going to be friendly for whoever the wide receiver 1, 2, we talked about it in the offseason that Njoku's not going to be a loser if Fannon is good. Well, you know what? He probably is going to be. He just is. Because Njoku's not better than Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman, at least based on their usage towards the end of the year and week 1. So it does squeeze out probably Njoku a little bit.
Yeah, and I think most of us didn't see Njoku getting ethered. Now, Njoku also had a decent, what do you have, 6 targets himself?
Here's the thing. He had a good game with the usage that didn't kill you. But you're like 3 guys had more usage and outproduced him, and it wasn't. Well,
that's the problem. Yeah, that's the problem. Is he was the 4th option this week. Like he needs for him to be what he's going to be. He needs, first of all, he needs to outproduce Fannon or out usage Fannon, and he has to have weeks where he's the 2nd option in that offense. And
I don't want to do this for the people, Shane, but the guy that stands out after week 1 that you could say is in one of those environments is Kyle Pitts.
Dude, okay, so real quick, I wrote up Kyle Pitts on Follow the Volume, right? And I was all ready to go, look, it's a typical Kyle Pitts fluke week. And I didn't even look at the scoring. What I did look at, his snap share, and I didn't look at his route participation because, frankly, his snap share is all I really needed to see. He had a higher snap share, like he was not a part-time player. That's what I saw. He's been a part-time player over the last 2 seasons has been the issue. Since his rookie year, they've taken him off the field way too much. They didn't do that this past weekend. So if that holds, yeah, you got to feel bullish about him because Michael Penix will throw the ball, right? We know he will throw the ball. And he does seem to have his guys, which seem to be London and him. And it helps that, Darnell Mooney's not playing and that Ray McLeod is, well, he's just Ray McLeod. So, yeah. But again, I'm sorry. I'm all in on the Pitts love. Yeah.
Well, and even if you look at the Falcons Trinity week 1, even Ray McLeod and Casey Washington were high enough on there to where, like, if that just consolidates a little bit to Darnell Mooney, that's an offense that probably can support 3 guys. Now, is it going to be Pitts, London, and Mooney every week? No. But I think you can confidently say, like I said at the beginning, that there's probably going to be every other week between either the wide receiver 2 or Kyle Pitts where you feel pretty good about starting them. And that's fine. If it's the number 2 and 3 option on a team and you can kind of interchange which ones have good games, that's fine. Like, I don't think you can expect much more. We're not looking at wide receiver 2s or tight end 2s or tight end 1s, but really is like the 2nd or 3rd option on a team. Yeah, we're typically not going to the 2nd or 3rd guy and going, I expect that guy to smash every week. You know what I mean?
Well, I'll say if it's the tight end, I would, because it's a different.
Well, because the bar is lower, right?
Right.
If you're getting a 21% target share at tight end and you're getting used in a way like a wide receiver 2 or 3, like that's probably pretty good relative to tight end.
Pitts, 19% target share and a 81% route participation rate. We can live with that, right? We can absolutely.
And a 6 Trinity. So he was used in a way that also led to some fantasy points, and he produced above the line for the first week. So I was encouraged with Pitts, and he's the same player that he was. I mean, I did hear some people say he looked better, another year removed from the surgery that he had. So maybe, and he's probably playing for a big contract too, because he's a free agent. So there's maybe other things that are helping him have maybe a good year. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely one. So you didn't get back to what you would pay for Harold Fannon.
Oh,
you said you wanted more, but are you even willing to buy? Like the thought of giving up a first, even in a high tight end premium, is that a no way?
Yeah, I'm not there.
Okay.
I've seen and someone put it in the chat, and I don't know if they were talking about Pitts or Fannon, but I've seen too many times where people flash on week 1 and then we never hear from them again, or we hear from them in a much lower usage role. So I'm not there with him, but again, that doesn't mean I don't like him. It's just I'm not going to pay what, unfortunately, or not unfortunately, I'm not willing to pay what other people pay. Real quick, just going back to Kyle Pitts. Yeah, his route participation this past week was 22% higher than what it was last year, and his snap share was that's not how you do math, 24% higher than it was last year. So sometimes it's as simple as just, I got to get on the field and run routes. And that's what they did with him.
Good question from Josh. What's the difference between Fannon and Warren other than preconceived notions of where they were drafted and what the team invested in them? I mean, Josh is probably one of the biggest Fannon fans that I know, but Fannon did lead the Browns in Trinity. And, like I said, they had two other guys that were up there. They had three players that were close to a 7. I mean, Judy was a little bit above a 7. Tillman was right below it. And then Fannon led them at 7.7 too. So they had 3 guys in that like low end wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 usage. And so like all 3 of them, based on that, any of them could have had the games that they did. It just happened to be that, Tillman and Fannon had the better games, but it's not like Judy had a terrible game. He was still pretty good.
I would ask Josh, okay, so if it was a rookie wide receiver that had a better season, better week than Tet McMillan, would you still say the only difference between them is draft capital? I just, that's all. It's 1 week. It's 1 week.
So that's also back to like, you can't get Tyler Warren, right? So I get his question, but like you have to pay so much to get Tyler Warren that it makes sense to pivot to Fannon. But that's
if the difference is, if the difference is I have to pay 2 firsts for Warren, or I can get Fannon for 2 seconds, I'll pay 2 seconds. I can't get to a first yet though. And you know what? I don't need to. There's going to be opportunities to buy him for that. And again, I don't know if someone in here was talking about Isaiah Likely, or were they talking about Pitts, or were they talking about Fannon? But we saw Isaiah Likely look like a world beater week 1 last year, right?
And Isaiah Likely's Trinity last year was way better than what Harold Fannon and Tyler Warren's was this year. I mean, that was just week 1. So that is probably a word of caution. At the same time, if you have the Trinity tool, go back and look at Baltimore in week 1 last year. It was Isaiah Likely and nobody else. So big difference, right? Fannon did this in an environment where there were 2 other guys that were there. So, I mean, there's probably a little more capacity in that situation than there was with Baltimore last year, but that's really the only difference. But I see the point.
Josh, I love you, dude. His
name and Fannon are comps now. Right. You better get in now. You're gonna regret it. Like you did with
I'll say this: if Fannon would have went out there and saw 20 targets and 15 receptions, yes, I would give up a first for him, because that's basically what Puka did.
So I did want to bring this up, but before we do, we had some questions I want to get to. I know you starred quite a few, so if you want to hit a few of those, we had a couple super chats. If you want to hit to those, and then I want to talk about some of these gross Trinity receivers that we might be able to have some actionable conversations about.
I feel like I lost one that was in the beginning. I don't know if that was from today. I'm going to go back and start just in case. Anyway, we got Snarky Schmuck, which I feel like he stole that name from me, if we're being honest. But anyway, what is your take on dead zone ADV wide receivers like London, ARSB, Nico Ladd, etc., worth more than a first but less than 2 firsts? No overreaction to wide receiver 1, but limited market, feels expensive compared to WAR. When should we sell max value, and when should we sell to maximize value and WAR?
So this is a good question, because he named 4 receivers that were all valued in that top 12, top 15 range, but none of them were probably viewed as elite, right? Every one of these guys was in that range. Some of them were good in week 1. Some of them weren't. Amon-Ra wasn't great. Nico was pretty bad. Ladd was good, but Ladd also was topped by 2 other receivers on his own team. Go look at the Chargers Trinity if you don't have that. Another environment where you're like, you know what, they can probably support multiple receivers. So I'm not worried about Ladd given the environment that he's in. And then Drake London was great. But these guys are probably not. Well, let me zoom.
They're not CD Lamb. They're not Jamar Chase.
Of these guys, which one could you see having a top 4 finish or better?
Drake London.
Okay. So Drake London, that was where my mind went to, just based on the offense, based on his quarterback, based on his usage. He could be the one that does have a CD Lamb type season where he gets 190 targets. You know what I mean? Like that, That's possible. But the other 3, I think they're all probably very good, but they're probably not guys I'm rushing to go trade 2 straight first-round picks for. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't buy them. But, like, can you even get 2 firsts for these guys? That's the thing. Like, if you told me I could sell Ladd for a lesser receiver and a first, and that lesser receiver was I don't know, Cat McMillan, or you know what I mean? Like if I could go a quote unquote only down a tier and get a first on top, I'd be willing to gamble that receiver that I get could be pretty close to what he is. Maybe he's not as good. Maybe Ladd's wide receiver 10 and that guy's wide receiver 17, but it's not enough for me to give up a first on top for that difference. But you'd also buy these guys if you could get them in the right way. You know what I mean? So like, what do you do with these types?
This is like, so if I can get one of these guys in like a start 11 by giving up.
And JSN's in here too. Garrett Wilson's in here too. Marvin Harrison's in here too. Like Brian Thomas is in here. All of those guys are in this same range.
Brian Thomas is closer to Malik Neighbors tier, at least for me.
Okay.
But yeah, I
mentioned Malik Neighbors, but
I get your point. But I mean, most wide receivers, you're not going to get 2 firsts for. Like it's a limited number of skill players that you're going to get 2 firsts for. It's a very limited number of players.
But would you give up one of these receivers that is just below this tier and a first to tier up to him? Are you giving up? Let me see. Would you give up? I mean, this is an easy one after week 1, but would you give up Roma Dunze and a first for Nico Collins?
Right now, yes.
Okay. Yeah. Would you give up Zay Flowers in a first for Nico Collins?
Yes. But, you know, real quick. I
think if you're willing to pay that price,
I'm going
to pay that price.
I'm looking at different wide receivers at first. I love Nico, but he's the least expensive elite wide receiver. So let me, you know what I mean? Like, let me try.
Well, would you give up Roma Dunze and a first for Marvin Harrison? Because he's right there with Ladd and Nico on KTC. Literally, they're all back to back.
Did he move back up that high?
Marv is wide receiver 12, Ladd is 11, JSN 10, Nico 9. They're all within like 150 points of each other.
Oh man, that's probably
Amon-Ra 7. Amon-Ra's in a different tier, which I don't agree with, but the point is they're all the same. Like they're seen as this very good, not elite tier, and historically that is not a tier you want to tier off of a wide receiver 2 plus a first to get. If all I'm getting is wide receiver 11 from Marv, that's not worth me giving up a wide receiver 2 plus a first.
Exactly. Like if I'm doing that, then I need Marv to be a top 6 wide receiver. And could he do that? Yes. I'm still not. I still don't feel super confident in it because he's not the first option in his offense. And as much as I'd like to say that he will be, I don't think he's going to be as long as Trey McBride is there. I don't see it. I don't know how that happens. As much as I'd like to add Marv to most of my rosters.
You know who would probably be the target that I would go after? I mean, Rome is an obvious one because I think people still liked Rome's usage, even though the Bears were a little unconcentrated. You know who was a big winner if you can get one of these and you can stave off the next 5 weeks? I assume you would take Rashee Rice and a first for any one of those guys that was listed.
Oh shit! I already unstarted. Crap. Sorry.
Amon-Ra or Rashee Rice and a first. I assume you're taking Rice and a first.
Probably. Yeah. There's a good
Same
chance.
with JSN, Ladd, Marv.
Yeah. It's a lot easier with those guys than it is ARSB. I still think he's a tier above them, but yeah.
What about BTJ? You already excluded him.
No.
Do you look at his Trinity in week 1?
I got to say, Trevor Lawrence is a Brian Thomas Jr. Killer. He is not good for his fantasy production. Also, he's still not that good anyway. Yeah, it's a little troubling if you love BTJ like I do, how they force fed Travis Hunter and they can't seem to connect. Trevor Lawrence can't connect with Brian Thomas Jr. And who's the head coach there? Liam Cohen was already sounding like, I am tired of this fucking pretty boy. He sucks. He was already making those noises, talking about how open Brian Thomas Jr. was and the quarterback not being able to get the ball to him. That's a whole other tangent. So you know what? Maybe I would have to take Rice in the first for Brian Thomas Jr. because that ain't going to change for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's to answer the original question, because it was a $20 super chat, so we appreciate that. This is the range where you really do have to make a bet on these guys. Like it doesn't feel good to give up Ladd or JSN or Marv. Like Buka's in this range. We had to talk about Ibuka earlier. it's rocket ship Igbuka, but like, what are the odds he's just better than JSN and Marv, Shane, and Ladd? That he's just better than those guys? Like, it's probably pretty low. It's probably pretty fair to say Igbuka this is the tier that he belongs in, right? Like, I'm not betting on Igbuka getting into the top 4, top 5. So he fits in the range where if you could get another player, another receiver that, and I'm not talking about any receiver. I'm not talking about going down to like, here, I'll give you Keon Coleman in a first. Like, we're talking about you get your choice of one of these guys that's in a tier below, whoever you want. Rome, Rashee Rice. I mean, T. Higgins probably fits in there. A healthy Xavier Worthy would fit in there, but who knows about that? Zay Flowers probably fits in there. George Pickens, I still believe in, fits in there. Like those moves, if you're right on those, it's probably the smart move to sell, but a lot of people just don't like giving up that type of receiver because it feels more elite than probably what the results are.
I'm not going to say
okay.
it, but it's on there. Yeah.
Lawrence was the problem in week 1. Their usage was good. Their offense as a whole was good, but the quarterback efficiency was below par.
Which has been seems to be a common reoccurring theme with Trevor Lawrence. So maybe I have to take off my Brian Thomas Jr. Love glasses and just look at it with a cold, steely heart. So there was another super chat in here. I had no idea if it was from today.
It was. I put it in there. Yep.
Okay. So Creed Bratton. Appreciate it. 12-team Superflex start 9. No tight end premium. Olave or Pittman and JCM for Rashee Rice. He also has a chain or no, this is another trade. I'm sorry. So let's do the first one first because that's how it goes. It orders. Would you give up Olave and JCM for Rashee Rice? Yes. Yes, I would.
Yeah, I mean, I was encouraged. The Saints were one of those sneaky teams that if they had a quarterback, you would love their environment.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm guessing the quarterback efficiency is just doesn't matter who their starter is. I mean, Rattler was better than I thought he would be, but he's still going to be below the mean in the league. So, like, even though the environment is going to be good, they're going to run a lot of plays. They're going to have a high neutral pass rate. It's just the quality is going to be average at the very, very best. So, yeah, I'd give up Olave and JCM for Rice. That's a perfect start 9 tier up deal.
So Olave's yards per reception was 7.7. Which would be impressive if you were a running back as a yards per carry, but yards per reception, we probably wanted to beat, I don't know, a little higher. So yeah, I would do that deal. What about Pittman?
No, I don't view Pittman and Olave as any different. I would actually take Olave over Pittman.
Okay. Okay, so the other deal, also a chain or dart and a 27 first. Wait, what is this? Also a chain or dart and a 27.
Dart and an early 27 for a chain. I know you love a chain, but goodbye, right?
I'm going to recuse myself.
I mean, it's an early 27 first. If that's legit, Shane, and it even has even if it's just flirting with you a little bit, that it could be a good 27 pick. And you're getting Dart, who, that even if you don't like Dart, the steam for if the Giants can just, and this is going to be a lot to ask from the Giants, if they can just hold on and not be a complete sinking ship that's at the bottom of the sea by the time Dart gets in there, I think there will be some excitement for Dart.
Dude, Dart's going to, as soon as he's named the starter, it's a rocket ship. Dude, it absolutely is because that offense is moribund. Moribund? I think that's how you say it. Moribund? Whatever. With Russ Wilson back there. It's start 9. It's an early first. 27 is apparently the class of all classes, and I don't care about that from the perspective of, I think the scouts will be right. I care about it from the perspective of the fantasy community believes it. Yeah, I'd be fine with that. I would be fine with that. I wouldn't love it because I hate moving a chain, but I would be okay with it.
Now, would you be fine with that if it was one of those teams where your team is already contending? Achan's one of your core starters, and now Dart's your QB3, and you have 3 other firsts. Like, it feels like it's overkill. You're just adding stuff. But you're getting further away from where you want your team to be,
Yeah. So context is important, right? Yeah, I'm not trying to deconcentrate like that when I have those types of assets, I'm not. So it does depend on the circumstance, but just in a vacuum, yes, that's a fair deal.
So I wanted to end it with this. We had a couple comments on Boutte. And so I want to give you some names just based on week 1 usage. These were the names that stuck out to me as receivers in environments and it's only 1 week. I mean, this is going to get stronger as we go through the next week, 2, 3. When we have like a 4-week sample size, this will be better to look at. But receivers that were out of nowhere, these were roster cloggers or below that you can probably pencil in. We have a lot of people that listen that play in start 11, start 12s, best ball leagues. You know what I mean? You could probably pencil a couple of these guys in the range of, well, you know what? Boute's not going to be great, but I bet you Boute could be this year's version of like Darnell Mooney, where he's a top 40 receiver and he's usable and he's going to have weeks and his name still doesn't warrant that he's valued there. But like, I'll give you the wide receiver 40 in Dynasty right now is Devontae Adams, but you also have names like Jaden Reed, Josh Downs, Luther Burden, Jerry Jeudy. So these are names that have a little sex appeal. You know what I mean? People like them. They wouldn't put Kayshon Boutte and Josh Downs in the same sentence. But based on this, I think Boutte is one of those. What about Calvin Austin, Shane? You buying into that?
I'll say this. I buy into Kayshon Boutte, and he was one of the wide receivers that I talked about on Shane Says that we dropped on the, well, not we, because you didn't, but that I dropped on the DD Patreon page today. Just check out All Gas /Patreon.
Patreon.com/all gas. Yes.
One day I will get it right. So that's where Follow the Volume was, and Shane Says. But yeah, he was one of the wide receivers I talked about, and I talked about why I'm buying into it is because this isn't just a fluke. This is a guy that had a really high snap share most of last year. He's a guy that had a decent target share and good route participation, and both of those have already increased. I know it's only week 1, and he's also a wide receiver that scored at least 16 points in 3 out of his last 4 games going back to last year. And this week was actually the lowest out of those 3 games. So yeah, I'm in on Boutte.
A few others. So I already talked about Cedric Tillman. Is that one that you'd throw into that top 40-ish range?
So yeah, go check out Shane Says, guys. Go check out our Patreon. Scott knows the actual URL because I don't.
It's linked in the description if you want to check it out.
Check it out. Yeah, join for a month. You know what I mean? Just check it out. But yeah, I talked about why I like Tillman as well. But Tillman's another guy. Yes, I'm buying into it because there's peripherals that give you a reason to believe in these players.
So I had a team. Speaking of the next player, it's been a favorite of your and I's, and the usage and situation in week 1 is favorable. But I have a team. It's a 14-by-11, Shane, and I sold a bunch of pieces for picks. So I ended up with I have 3 firsts, 4 seconds. It was kind of a half-assed rebuild, but I still have enough pieces that I haven't been able to move yet that I go, you know what? Let me just set my lineup in week 1. And it's one of those teams where I only have enough starters for my 14-by-11. And I went 2-0. I had the second highest score this week. And because I had 5 thirds, I sent 2 thirds for Keenan Allen. And I'm just going to start him until I can't anymore.
Yeah.
But I think both him and Quentin Johnston fit the bill of you could do worse than just put him in and start him. And there is no future investment value here. There is no I'm buying Quentin Johnston, so he's starting for me for the next 2 years. He's starting for me for the next 2 games, and then I'll reassess what it looks like in week 4. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But these are the type of receivers that if you have a hole, I would much rather early in the season, I would much rather pay to fill a hole with one of these high usage receivers than I would go pay a first for a buy low on Devontae Smith. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's the type of move people make because they think they need another receiver. And it's great. Devontae Smith looks nicer on your roster, but the difference between paying a first and 2 thirds for Keenan Allen or a third for Kayshon Boutte and just living with the results, it's not worth it. So these are some of those names that popped out to me. But any thoughts on that? And then I have a few more for you.
Yeah, I like it. And I was proud of a couple of the leagues that I was in today because I saw Boutte moved for a third. I saw him moved in a package deal where he was kind of the main piece, but there's a couple of ancillary pieces. And that's, I'd much rather do that than to spend the first on, I like Devonta Smith, but he's not a player that's ever going to be a wide receiver 1, most likely.
So here's another one that I paid a third for in one of those similar leagues. 7.09 Trinity, 25% target share. Kind of snuck up on people, but how about Wan'Dale Robinson, Shane?
I have a lot of Wandele.
Yeah.
I kept adding him in the off season for thirds because you know what I would do? I'd look at my wide receivers and I'd go, I kind of need one of those dudes that I can just go, what? I'm sticking him in the lineup every week. And some weeks he's going to pop and some weeks he's going to be a dud, but I'll leave him in there for the weeks that he pops. And that was Wandele.
And then the other one we already mentioned was Olamide Zaccheaus. That's probably the one that's at the bottom of this, but in a 12 by 11, 12 by 12, again, these are short-term plays. Think of this is one of the benefits of the Trinity is you have the ability to kind of find, these are like the spot start running back versions of receivers. You know what I mean? I can chase the usage and it could go away. So you're not buying anything that you expect to be static over a long period of time, but while the usage is there, you have a much better chance at finding some random fantasy points in here versus just continuing to jam in the same guys over and over and over. Like Cooper Kupp is one.
I'm already, no.
But that's the kind of guy that if you don't have a Kayshon Boutte to start, guess what you're going to do in week 2?
Oh, well, yeah,
you're going to see that. You're going to see that nice projection for Cooper Kupp and go, maybe he'll give me that 15 points this week.
Yeah.
Probably not. So anyway, that was that topic. We have a couple other questions I wanted to hit. Any trades we have, we'll answer those on Dynasty Deal Show. So if you have any trade questions, that's where to get your trade questions in. If you're not already a member, every Friday night, you can literally get unlimited trades answered live on Friday night at 9 p.m. So any trades we'll throw in there. Already talked Boutte. Any of these comments you wanted to put up there? We have about 5 minutes.
And as we go longer, it's harder for me to see because my contacts are completely dried out. Let me go back to the top. See if what do you think about this? This dude traded Ladd and Javonte Williams for Josh Jacobs. Did he lose? Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
what's the context? But yes.
Well, yeah, I think you lost just from like a dynasty value standpoint because we were talking 10 minutes ago about what you could maybe do with Ladd.
Right.
That's where you lost. But I could see if you're just talking short-term production over the next year or two, I don't think you necessarily lost, but there's more to the context to, if you're going to do that. So we don't know any of that, but yeah, I would say you just lost based on what else I could do.
Ryan C wants to know, make or break year for T-Law, or is that narrative over?
I don't think it's a make or break year. I think there's still a small percentage of people that think T-Law can be completely turned around. When I say make or break year, he's not going to lose his job.
No.
But there's more pressure in year 2 if he doesn't get better in year 1. And it starts to look like, I don't know if he's the best fit for this system. But you could say that about a lot of quarterbacks. I don't think it's make or break. I do think it's make or break from a standpoint of people expected him to turn around and become Baker. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or you expect he's going to lead a fruitful environment year after year after year. That's probably on the table, but I don't think it's make or break for his dynasty value. I mean, he's got a contract he couldn't move on from. So
I think he's in a range that is probably where he's going to stay for a little bit. He's not going to be, at least it doesn't appear he's going to be what we had hoped that he was going to be when he came out.
JCM.
I don't want to get savaged in the comments, but I would probably still sell him for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
No, well, let me ask you this. Let me
running back. It's a running back, Shane.
Whoa.
People are panicking on who would you rather have, JCM or Kenneth Walker?
Kenneth Walker.
That 2 seconds is what the absolute most you could get for Kenneth Walker right now. So I don't even care how good the running back is if they don't have a shot to crack the top 5. 2 seconds is not a terribly unfair price.
I don't know, man. I did a whole video on it. Got savage. Got called all types of names. People were acting like I said trade him for a 4th.
Did you see the Commanders mashup today? The I'm just a Bill from.
No, but that's pretty cool. I saw parts of it, but yeah, it's pretty. Cool.
It was pretty good. The fact that was the only thing is you could spin the narrative that they're already creating cute little social media posts.
I will say that. I will say that. I will say that I noticed that they obviously know there's a groundswell for him. Now, at the end of the day, if he gets out on the field and he doesn't rip off a 50-yarder, or if he doesn't convert some of those goal line carries into touchdowns, will they still love him as much? I mean, they sat they healthy scratched Chris Rodriguez, so they're telling us they like him. I mean, so he just needs to go out there and capitalize on the opportunity he was given, and he did on Sunday. Yeah, Sunday.
So here's one. We'll end it with this. B-Flock said, any recommendations to make? Hold tight. Currently first with a 98% chance to make the playoffs according to Dynasty Daddy. I think you starred this one. Did he have a roster to go along with that?
Oh, he might have, and I definitely didn't start the second part of that.
Any thoughts in general? If you're, yeah, here we go. Here's his team.
Okay. CD, Marv, Hunter, London, Smitty, Ladd, Bateman, Brees, JT, Mason, Benson. No, I'm good. I'm just going to chill for a minute.
Can we get rid of Will Dissly and just pick up anything else?
Yeah, but as far as like buying anything, right? Like it's like Godfather. Like my true enemy is yet to reveal himself. I'll just hold off until I know what my holes are.
Well, okay. So just little things that you could do besides getting rid of Will Dissly. I mean, look at this roster. Like, do we need Devontae Smith on this roster? Do we need a third quarterback on this roster? Could we maybe pull a little bit more value there or try to upgrade? I mean, you have enough to get by. Like sometimes these are the teams that you just like to coast with. Like you said, 98% chance to make the playoffs. Like you're going to make the playoffs. You have an extra quarterback in case you miss one. You know, Devontae Smith's your wide receiver 6, which is a good problem to have. So, you know, whenever you have excess and you have a team that looks like it can coast, don't think about what happens if the worst case scenario happens. If you have 8 starters that get injured, Shane, yeah, you're probably not going to win. Think about what am I going to need? Where do I want to park some of my excess value? How do I get flexible when I might actually need to do something? He already has 2 extra firsts. Like that's the kind of team where you could add another first if you wanted because you have some excess. Just think about when are you going to strike with that value? Things are going to go wrong. Something's going to happen to your team that's going to be a little uncomfortable. Like when in your league is going to be best. We don't even know if he has a trade deadline. That's another big one. Like if I don't have a trade deadline, you know what I learned from last year, Shane? I'm not going to necessarily blow my second and my third and all of those things right now when you never know what I can buy during the trade deadline. I'm also not going to trade away all of my injured players. We've done that in the past. The guy gets injured in week 2, he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? You know who might be good to have in week 11 when everybody starts to tank? The injured guy. You know what I mean? So just you don't have to do it immediately. I'm starting to basically play this like, what do I need this week? I'm going to close it with that, Shane. Have you looked at some of your teams for week 2?
Yes.
Okay. Have there been any moves where you've made like I had one where I lost Brock Purdy and it was a running gun. I traded for Mac Jones. But you know what? I actually looked at that. Like I can, and the reason I did it is because it sounds like Brock Purdy's probably going to miss like multiple games the way that they're talking. But like, are you going to make a trade if you don't have to make, if you're playing the shittiest team that you're a 80-point favorite, are you really going to pay 2 picks to get another starter just to plug in this week? Or are you just going to gamble? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
Like you're already managing it week to week. So don't overthink it.
I'll tell you my one horror story. I traded for Dallas Goedert, and then while it was on the treadmill 2 hours later, saw that he did not practice today and is unlikely to play. So I traded for Dallas Goedert so he could replace Evan Ingram in my lineup. Probably not the smartest move getting a Dallas Goedert, because if it wasn't this week, it would have been some other week.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, fun show. Week 1's in the books. I'll think about becoming a member of the community, patreon.com/allgas or ddfantasyfootball.com. And then also tap into the live stream on Friday for Dynasty Deal Show if you have trades. We had some trades we couldn't get to tonight, but that's where to answer them. Friday nights, 9 o'clock, myself, Shane, and Ty, 1 hour of just straight trades, and we'll answer them until there's not any more to answer. So, Shane, have a good rest of the week. Everybody else, good luck in week 2, and we'll be back next Wednesday.